made it more powerful to me.
Yeah, and I also think that, like, the differences in what they were trying to get across, like, the directors and, like, the scriptwriters of both of them had different ideas of, like, for the same social commentary, what they wanted the audience to take away. Like, we had talked about how kind of, like, because of its overtness, 2 + 3 = 5 has sort of this, like, mockery kind of, like, the dictatorships and, like, totalitarian governments. And, like, so we talked about that there are a few illusions in 2 + 2 = 5, but that, like, because of their overtness, like we've talked about over the semester, like, that in a way it can make it just a little bit less sophisticated when it is so obvious. And, like, one of the ones is we thought the like, the patches on the arms of, like, the older boys reminded us kind of like, Nazi Germany, and, like, gave some Inglourious Bastards vibes.
Yeah.
Does one of y'all want to talk about the other one, or I can do it?
I can do it. In addition to, like, the very overt allusions to Nazi Germany and even the book 1984, like, 2 + 2 = 5 came straight out of 1984. It was, like, a quote where George Orwell, or whatever his name was like,
you're right, George Orwell.
That was his name. He just, like, said that was a way that people were being brainwashed by, like, convincing them that 2 + 2 = 5. Like, that was such a, like, very...
Because it's obviously not right.
Yeah, it's obviously not right. But in addition to that, there was some, like, very overt foreshadowing. Like, everything was just very out there. And, like, you could very much tell what was going to happen next. And when one of the boys was like, don't stand up, don't say anything, you're going to get killed. We were like, well, he's going to get killed now. So, like, it was just...
Ding, ding, ding.
It wasn't even like a symbol or, like, something simple. It was him saying, you're going to get killed, gets shot. So we thought that was, like... It was probably their point, like, they wanted us to, like, know that this is going to happen, but it definitely didn't feel like it was real or it was accurate in their depiction of communism or totalitarianism. So, we thought that all that extra film pizzazz didn't make it any better. It kind of took away from the meaning for us.
I thought it was super interesting that, I think we read somewhere that they, like, blurred out the guns, but, like, it was literally, like, the guys were like this. Like, they weren't holding a gun.
And you had the sound.
I think I think that's honestly an allusion to censorship within these governments.
That's true. Because I was confused, like, at first I was like, okay, yeah, they're, like, holding up their guns at him, but, like, LOL, like, I don't, like... he's not really gonna get shot. But then there's, like, blood. There's, like, actual blood and a dead body. And you're like...
Well, that's the same with, like... I can't remember what country it is, but I know that I saw an article online about some country, like, censoring album covers. Like, taking the women off the covers. Like, it's just, like, an aspect of those sorts of governments that I think they were trying to portray. And we were like, wait, where are the guns? Like, the children are seeing the guns. Why aren't we seeing the guns? Like, they're obviously holding guns. But a part of a communist society is that they censor the things that they're...
That's a really good point.
They want to make themselves... paint themselves in a better light.
Yeah. So, I think that was very deliberate and a very... Now that I think about it, probably one of the more sophisticated things about the movie.
Yeah. I think, honestly, just the fact that there was no gun and alluding to, like, censorship, that was probably, like, the most, like, sophisticated thing about the movie, if not, like... I mean,
but the rest of it was just
commentary of the government, like, defiance against the government is pretty strong. But I mean, going off that, like, the cinematography of the two films are kind of similar. Like, they're both centered around struggles in Iraq. They're both kind of Iran. Same thing, not really.
Yeah.
They're both kind of, like, dark and gloomy and, like, shot with not necessarily, like, a camera of the best quality. And I think that makes, like, especially the baby more realistic because it looks like it could be shot on someone's iPhone. And I think that's, like, putting you, like, in the shoes of these real life women. Like, people in Iran, like, go through these struggles and, like, you're not supposed to see this as, like, a glorified, like, reality. Like, this is, like, not okay, and, like, this
and
is...
it creates tension. Like, tension that wouldn't be there if you had, like, sophisticated camera angles. Like, it makes you feel like you're following her around, and, like, you can be... Like, I was on my toes the whole time. I was like, when they walked into the dorm, and the baby cried, and the lady called her back, I was like, oh my god, they're gonna catch her. And I don't think that would have been done if it wasn't dark, if it wasn't gloomy, if it wasn't, like, moving around so much.
Like, when they're in the alley and you can hear people in the distance and they're, like, being sketchy about, like, zipping the baby up and, like...
Yeah. It was just spooky. It was
all
spooky.
dark. Yeah.
And you could feel like that fear that she had that she was going to be found out and that her life was going to be over. And it wasn't the same in the other one. Like, I just felt like, yeah, like he's going to stand up. But that was it. It was just kind of just like, here's the problem. Somebody stands up against it. Like, these people aren't going to conform no matter what. It was just like, not as, I keep saying this, not as powerful, but it really wasn't.
I also feel like, going off that, one of the things that made the baby stronger is that it started like in the middle of the conflict. Like, it literally, like, the opening scene is she's like carrying her luggage, and so it's just like immediately like there's this tension, and like we were looking at each other like, okay, like what's
going
happening?
on?
Like, whatever.
Yeah.
And so it built, like, obviously they're both suspenseful, but I think they're suspenseful in a really different way.
Like, I think that they contrast each other in the way that the conflict is framed. Like, in the baby, it's more like tension and emotion, whereas in 2 + 2 = 5, it's very like action and violence driven. And I think that is a way that they portray it very differently, even though it's the same problem.
Yeah, and I think that's what makes the baby more sophisticated, because, like, in real life situations, it's not always going to be action driven. It's not always going to be like people getting shot in the streets or kids getting shot in classrooms. Like, that doesn't always happen, although it does sometimes. But like, it's more realistic for like people to conform to the society and like be oppressed in the society and like do what you need to do to like get by. And I think that's why like the baby was definitely more sophisticated.
Yeah, and that it just like was the way that the plot was developed in each, made them different and made the effect different of each.
We were also trying to think of kind of like how they fell into different archetypes, and one that we thought that the baby fell into was the like unhealable wound, and how like I feel like it ties into social commentary and the archetype together, because in a different culture, in a different setting, it like having the baby wouldn't be this like psychological and in a way like physical wound, because it's this burden that she has that causes her to like be seen by her family and society as differently, like the loss of her innocence, and so I feel like with that it definitely does, because it drives the plot of that movie.
And I think that you could argue that 2 + 2 = 5, the archetype is good versus evil, and it's just very like the unhealable wound is more like something you don't expect from this. Like, you know that these people are suffering, but you don't see it. You only see people getting shot in the streets. You see propaganda, you see pictures, you see videos, you see like we hate the government things, but you don't see the real life applications of how this is really going on. And the baby actually did a really good job of showing that. So I guess in conclusion to all of these, like all these aspects of these films that were similar were much better done, and the baby making it a much more sophisticated and complex storyline. And although they tackled very, very, very similar issues, they weren't exactly the same. They were in the same areas. They did it such a better job than, although the 2 + 2 = 5 did have some very strong things, like their illusions, like the allusion to censorship I thought was really good. But I think that still the baby did a much better job of enthralling us and getting us talking, getting us thinking. And there are some things that weren't presented, some film aspects that weren't presented in these movies, including things like a thread. If you guys want to talk about that.
So we thought one of the things that was continuous throughout the Sunshine short film was like the thread of sunshine. So at first, I don't remember the narrator's name, but he talks about how like the way that commercialism and like advertising in Shanghai is that it's about like the sunshine, how they're like selling, even in the McDonald's commercial, like it's this little boy and his dad, and it's like this like emotionally charged experience. And then he goes on to talk about Mao, I say that every time. Okay, the like communist leader of China, and how he like it shows in a museum or like some exhibit these like old posters of Mao, and he's like surrounded by like this red sunshine. So kind of like the similarities between the commercials they use now for like consumer products in China compared to like how it's evolved and also stayed very similar to like communism propaganda in Chinese history. So we thought that was interesting.
Yeah. And we thought that although there was foreshadowing in 2 + 2 = 5, the film sign language did a much better job of foreshadowing, with both the man, Ben, I think his name was, and the girl having the rainbow gloves, and you knew, like, at the end that they were meant to be together. And
I guess that could be maybe a thread. Like, I don't know necessarily what it's like the thread is alluding to, but there is a thread that the fact that it's not like a coincidence that they have the same gloves.
Yeah. So although we thought these two films were easy to compare and were really well done, there are some other aspects of other films that we thought were better.
Oh, another note, like, I think the film that had the best cinematography was Samsara, because it was so cool. Like, they didn't talk once, although it was gruesome and it made you not want to eat meat ever again. It was just really cool how it was just such like a zoomed out, zoom in view of kind of like just human consumption. Like, humans are so quick to just like be greedy and have gluttony and like eat and take and not really know like where this food is coming from. And so it really gives you like a in close view of like what we're eating, and then it like zooms out and shows like the shot, like the time lapse of everyone running through the grocery store. It was just really, really cool, and it all like came down to like the final obese scene in the doctor's office, and I just thought it showed like just like how humans just never stop and are just like very greedy and gluttony. Just kind of similar to the film that we saw in class at the very beginning, where they fall through the floors.
Yeah. So, overall, we enjoyed most of the films, but I hope we did a good job of analyzing them.
See you in class.